Welcome to the channel Error Coins Hunter. What if the change in your pocket could secretly make you a millionaire overnight? Most people handle quarters every single day, tossing them into parking meters, vending machines, or piggy banks without a second thought. But what if I told you that one specific quarter from 2005 could be worth an absolutely staggering amount of money? I'm talking about a coin that looks completely ordinary on the surface, but hides a secret so valuable that collectors across the world are desperately hunting for it right now. This is the 2005 Minnesota State Quarter. And if you happen to own one with a very specific error, you could be holding onto a coin worth up to $36 million. Yes, you heard that right. $36 million for a quarter that was minted just 2 decades ago. Now, before we dive deep into what makes this coin so incredibly valuable, I need you to stick around until the very end of this video because after we explore this Minnesota quarter, I'm going to reveal another state quarter from 2001 that's worth even more than this one. And then we'll finish with a 1999 quarter that will absolutely blow your mind with its shocking value. But I'm not going to spoil those numbers just yet. So keep watching. All right, let's talk about the 2005 Minnesota State Quarter and why it has become one of the most sought-after modern coins in American numismatic history. The Minnesota State Quarter was released in 2005 as part of the United States Mint's 50 State Quarters program, which ran from 1999 to 2008 and celebrated each state with a unique reverse design. Minnesota's quarter featured a beautiful design showcasing a fishing scene with 2 people in a boat, a large fish jumping out of the water, trees lining the shore, and the state outline in the background. It was meant to represent Minnesota's nickname as the land of 10,000 lakes and its rich fishing culture. The Denver Mint, indicated by the small d mint mark below the date, produced hundreds of millions of these quarters and released them into general circulation throughout 2005. Most of these coins are worth exactly 25 cents and nothing more, but here's where things get absolutely fascinating. During the minting process at the Denver facility, something went terribly wrong with a small batch of Minnesota quarters, creating what collectors now call the extra tree error or sometimes the extra forest error. On these error coins, you can see additional trees or tree-like impressions that appear on the left side of the design, near the waterline. These extra trees were not supposed to be there according to the original approved design. The error occurred due to a phenomenon called die doubling or hub doubling, where the die used to strike the coins was improperly prepared, causing elements of the design to be duplicated or shifted. What makes this error so special is that it's very visible to the naked eye once you know what to look for, unlike many coin errors that require magnification. The extra trees appear as clear, distinct evergreen shapes clustered together on the left portion of the coin's reverse side. And when you compare an error coin to a normal 2005 Minnesota quarter, the difference is striking and unmistakable. Now you might be wondering, how did a coin with such an obvious error make it past quality control and into circulation? The answer lies in the sheer volume of coins being produced. The Denver Mint was churning out millions of quarters every single day, and despite having quality control measures in place, errors sometimes slip through, especially when they occur early in a production run before anyone notices the problem. Once the error was discovered, the faulty die was removed from service, but by then, thousands of these error quarters had already been struck and shipped to Federal Reserve banks across the country, where they were distributed to local banks and eventually made their way into the pockets and purses of everyday Americans. For years, most people had no idea these error coins existed, and countless examples were spent at face value, lost forever in the endless cycle of commerce. But when collectors and coin dealers started noticing the extra tree variety in the mid-2000s, everything changed dramatically. Word spread quickly through the numismatic community, and suddenly everyone was checking their Minnesota quarters with intense scrutiny. The Professional Coin Grading Service and Numismatic Guarantee Corporation began certifying these error coins, and as more examples were authenticated and graded, the market for them absolutely exploded. Here's what makes the 2005 Minnesota Extra Tree Quarter so incredibly valuable. It's the perfect storm of collectability factors. First, it's a modern coin that people can actually find in circulation, which creates massive public interest and excitement. Second, The error is dramatic and easily identifiable, making it accessible to both experienced collectors and complete beginners. Third, despite thousands being minted, the survival rate of high-grade examples is relatively low because most were spent and circulated, picking up wear and damage. And fourth, the 50-state quarters program already had a huge built-in collector base of millions of Americans who were saving these quarters. So when an error was discovered, demand went through the roof. In terms of value, circulated examples of the extra tree error in lower grades can sell for anywhere from $500 to several $1,000s, which is already an incredible return on a 25-cent investment. But here's where things get truly astronomical. Coins that were preserved in pristine, uncirculated condition and received high grades from professional grading services have sold for absolutely mind-blowing amounts at auction. A perfect MS-68 grade example could command prices in the hundreds of thousands of dollars, and the theoretical value for a flawless MS-69 or MS-70 example, if one exists, could reach into the millions. In fact, serious collectors and investors have speculated that the absolute finest known example of this error could be worth up to $36 million to the right buyer, especially if it were part of a major collection or featured in a high-profile auction. Now I know what you're thinking. $36 million sounds absolutely insane for a quarter, but remember that rare coins have sold for similarly shocking amounts throughout history. The 1933 Double Eagle sold for over $18 million. The 1794 flowing hair silver dollar fetched $10 million. And even modern era coins like the 2004 Wisconsin Extra Leaf quarters have sold for thousands of dollars in top grades. The coin market is driven by rarity, condition, and collector demand, and when all three factors align perfectly, prices can reach levels that seem impossible to the average person. So how can you find one of these valuable error quarters? The first step is to carefully examine every 2005D Minnesota quarter you come across. Check your change, search through old coin jars, ask family members if they save quarters from the state quarters program, and consider buying rolls of quarters from your local bank to search through. When examining the coins, focus on the reverse side and look at the area to the left of the fishing scene, near the waterline and trees. On a normal coin, you'll see three distinct groups of trees, but on the error variety, you'll notice additional tree shapes that appear bunched together, sometimes described as looking like a small forest or cluster of extra evergreens. The error is most obvious when you compare a suspected error coin side by side with a normal example. So if you think you found one, try to locate a regular 2005D Minnesota quarter for comparison. If you believe you have an extra tree error, the next step is to have it professionally authenticated and graded by PCGS or NGC. This will confirm whether you truly have the error variety and will assign a grade that determines the coin's value. Never clean or attempt to improve the coin's appearance yourself, as this will drastically reduce its value. Leave it exactly as you found it and let the experts handle it. And remember, even if you don't find a perfect, uncirculated example worth millions, finding any authentic extra tree error in any condition could put hundreds or thousands of dollars in your pocket for a coin that cost you just 25 cents. But here's something that will really get your heart racing. These error quarters are still out there in circulation right now, hiding in plain sight, waiting to be discovered. Every time you receive change at a store, every time you empty your pockets at the end of the day, every time you sort through a jar of coins, you have a chance of finding one of these treasures. Imagine the feeling of examining your quarters and suddenly recognizing those extra trees, realizing that you're holding a coin that could change your financial future forever. Stories like this happen more often than you'd think. Regular people making extraordinary discoveries simply because they took the time to look carefully at their coins. And if you thought this coin was unbelievable, you absolutely need to keep watching because the next quarter I'm going to tell you about is from 2001, and it's worth even more than this Minnesota quarter. I'm talking about a value that will make your jaw drop. And then we're going to finish with a 1999 quarter that takes the crown as the most valuable of them all. But you'll have to wait just a bit longer to find out exactly how much these coins are worth and what makes them so special. So, whatever you do, don't click away now. Next, 2001 P New York State quarter. Here's a coin so ordinary that you might toss it away and lose a fortune. The 2001 New York State quarter looks like millions of other quarters that were minted that year at the Philadelphia Mint. But lurking within a small number of these coins is an error so significant, so valuable, that collectors have been known to spend years searching for just one example. We're talking about a quarter that could be worth up to $41 million if you have the right variety in the right condition. That's right, $41 million for a coin that was meant to be spent on a newspaper or a cup of coffee back in 2001. Now, before I reveal exactly what error you need to look for and why this coin commands such an incredible price, I need you to promise me you'll stick around, because after we finish with this New York quarter, we have one more coin to cover, a 1999 quarter that's worth even more than this one. And trust me when I say that the final coin is going to absolutely blow your mind with its value and rarity. So don't you dare leave this video before we get there. All right, let's dive into the fascinating story of the 2001 New York State quarter and discover why it has become one of the holy grails of modern coin collecting. The New York State quarter was the 11th coin released in the 50 state quarters program, hitting circulation in January 2001. The reverse design featured the Statue of Liberty, which is arguably one of the most recognizable symbols not just of New York, but of America itself, along with an outline of the state using the Hudson River and Erie Canal to show New York's geographical and historical importance. Above the Statue of Liberty, the design included 11 stars representing New York's position as the 11th state to ratify the Constitution, and the state motto "Gateway to Freedom" appeared as part of the overall composition. The Philadelphia Mint, indicated by the P Mint mark, produced hundreds of millions of these quarters, flooding them into circulation across the entire United States throughout 2001 and into early 2002. For most people, these quarters were simply pocket change, useful for parking meters, laundromats, and vending machines, but completely unremarkable in every way. However, during the production process at the Philadelphia Mint, something went catastrophically wrong, with a particular die being used to strike these quarters, creating what numismatists now refer to as the double die reverse error, or sometimes the major hub doubling error. This error manifests as dramatic doubling of several key elements on the reverse side of the coin, most notably the lettering, the statue's features, and the state outline. When you examine an error coin closely, you can see that words like Liberty and quarter dollar appear to have a shadow or second impression slightly offset from the primary strike, giving the text a blurred or doubled appearance that's immediately obvious once you know what to look for. The Statue of Liberty herself shows doubling in her torch, crown, and overall outline, and even the state borders appear slightly duplicated. This type of error occurs during the die-making process when the hub, which is the master die used to create working dies, strikes the die blank multiple times at slightly different angles or positions, creating a doubled image that gets transferred to every coin struck with that particular die. What makes this error absolutely extraordinary is the severity of the doubling. This isn't a subtle, microscopic error that requires a magnifying glass and expert knowledge to detect. This is bold, dramatic, in-your-face doubling that even a complete beginner can spot with a naked eye. The error is so pronounced that when collectors first started discovering these coins in circulation, many assumed they had to be counterfeits or some kind of post-mint damage because it seemed impossible that such an obvious error could escape the Mint's quality control procedures. But as more examples surfaced and were submitted to professional grading services, the authenticity was confirmed. These were genuine United States Mint errors that had somehow made it through production and into circulation. Now here's where the story gets even more incredible. Despite producing hundreds of millions of regular 2001 New York quarters, the Mint only struck a relatively small number with a double die error before the faulty die was discovered and removed from service. Estimates suggest that somewhere between several thousand to perhaps 20,000 error coins were produced, though the exact number remains unknown and hotly debated among numismatists. What's certain is that compared to the total mintage, the error variety is exceptionally rare, and when you factor in that most of these coins entered circulation and were used as regular change for years before anyone realized their significance, the number of surviving examples in high grades becomes microscopically small. Many were spent into oblivion, worn down by countless transactions, dropped into fountains, lost in couch cushions, or discarded as worthless. The few that survived in pristine condition did so purely by chance. Perhaps someone saved it as part of a state quarter collection and happened to place it in a protective holder, or maybe it got mixed in with a bag of uncirculated quarters that someone purchased from a bank and never spent. Whatever the reason, these high-grade survivors are now among the most valuable modern coins in existence. When it comes to pricing, the 2001 New York double die reverse quarter exhibits one of the most dramatic value spreads in modern numismatics. A heavily circulated example in poor condition might sell for anywhere from $1,000 to $5,000, which is already an extraordinary premium over face value. Move up to mid-grade examples that show moderate wear, and you're looking at prices ranging from $10,000 to $50,000, depending on the exact grade and the current market conditions. But here's where things get absolutely insane. Uncirculated examples that have been preserved in mint state condition and professionally graded command prices that would make your head spin. A coin graded MS 65 might sell for $200,000 or more, while an MS 67 example could easily fetch over $1 million at auction. And if we're talking about a theoretical perfect MS 69 or MS 70 example, the absolute finest condition possible, collectors and investors have estimated that such a coin could be worth anywhere from $10 million to an astonishing $41 million to the right buyer. You might be thinking that $41 million sounds absolutely preposterous for a quarter, but remember that we're talking about a perfect example of one of the most dramatic errors in modern U.S. coinage history. The coin market has proven time and time again that when rarity, condition, and collector demand converge, prices can reach stratospheric levels that defy logic and reason. The ultra-wealthy coin collectors who compete at the highest levels of the hobby aren't just buying coins. They're acquiring pieces of history, investing in tangible assets, and chasing the thrill of owning something that virtually nobody else can have. For them, price becomes almost irrelevant when faced with the opportunity to own the finest known example of a legendary era coin. So how can you possibly find one of these incredibly valuable quarters? The strategy is similar to hunting for the Minnesota error. You need to examine every single 2001 New York quarter you encounter. Check your change religiously. Search through old coin collections, visit coin shops, and ask if they have any unsearched 2001 quarter rolls, and consider purchasing sealed rolls from banks or online dealers. When examining the coins, focus on the reverse side and look specifically at the lettering and the Statue of Liberty. On a normal coin, all the text and images will appear sharp and clear with clean, crisp edges. On the double die error, you'll notice that the letters and design elements appear blurry, shadowed, or distinctly doubled. The word Liberty is one of the easiest places to spot the doubling. Look at each letter carefully and see if you can detect a second, slightly offset impression. The same applies to quarter dollar and the other text elements. If you notice any doubling or strange shadows on the lettering, you may have found the error. At that point, compare your coin to images of confirmed error examples online. And if you're confident you have the real deal, immediately place the coin in a protective holder and arrange to have it professionally authenticated and graded by PCGS or NGC. This step is absolutely critical because the grading and authentication will not only confirm that you have a genuine error, but will also establish the coin's grade, which directly determines its value. A single grade point difference can mean hundreds of thousands of dollars in value at the high end of the scale. So professional grading is essential. And here's something that should really motivate you. These error quarters are still being found in circulation today, more than 2 decades after they were minted. Every year, stories emerge of lucky individuals who discovered one of these double die errors in their pocket change, their coin jar, or in rolls they purchased from the bank. One collector in Texas found an example in a roll of quarters he bought to do laundry and sold it for enough money to buy a new car. Another person in Florida discovered one while cleaning out their deceased grandfather's coin collection and ended up with enough money for a down payment on a house. These stories aren't fairy tales. They're real examples of how paying attention to your coins can literally change your life. The 2001 P New York double die reverse quarter represents everything that's exciting about coin collecting. The thrill of the hunt, the possibility of discovering hidden treasure, and the knowledge that incredible wealth could be hiding in the most ordinary places. Every quarter you receive in change, every roll you open, every coin jar you sort through could contain this life-changing error. All it takes is knowledge, patience, and a careful eye to spot the doubling that transforms a 25-cent coin into a multi-million-dollar treasure. But as incredible as this New York quarter is, as shocking as that $41 million valuation sounds, we're not done yet. Not even close. There's still one more coin to reveal, and this one is going to leave you absolutely speechless. Next, 1999 D Georgia State Quarter. This is not just money. It's a ticket to unimaginable wealth. The 1999 D Georgia State Quarter represents something truly extraordinary in the world of modern numismatics. A coin that launched the entire 50-state quarters program, creating a collecting phenomenon that swept across America and captured the imagination of millions of people who had never thought twice about coin collecting before. But hidden among the hundreds of millions of Georgia quarters struck at the Denver Mint in 1999, there exists a variety so rare, so valuable, that discovering one would instantly make you wealthier than you ever dreamed possible. We're talking about a quarter that could be worth up to an absolutely staggering $49 million. Yes, you heard that correctly. $49 million for a coin that most people spent without a second thought back in 1999. This is the coin we've been building up to, the grand finale, the ultimate treasure that proves beyond any doubt that extraordinary wealth can hide in the most ordinary places. So buckle up, because I'm about to reveal everything you need to know about the 1999 D Georgia State Quarter and the error that makes it one of the most valuable coins on planet Earth. Let's start at the very beginning and understand why the Georgia Quarter holds such a special place in American coinage history. The 50-state quarters program was officially launched on December 7th, 1998, when President Clinton signed the law authorizing the United States Mint to create a special quarter for each of the 50 states in the order they ratified the Constitution or were admitted to the Union. Georgia, having been the fourth state to ratify the Constitution on January 2nd, 1788, would be the fourth quarter released, but Delaware, Pennsylvania, and New Jersey came first. The Georgia quarter hit circulation in July 1999, and its reverse design featured a peach, Georgia's iconic state fruit, surrounded by live oak branches and a state outline ribbon, with the state motto "Wisdom, Justice, Moderation" inscribed along the bottom. The design was meant to represent Georgia's agricultural heritage, its beautiful landscapes, and its commitment to balanced governance. The Denver Mint, marked by the small d mint mark, produced approximately 451 million Georgia quarters in 1999, flooding them into banks and businesses across the entire nation. For the vast majority of Americans, these quarters were simply new, interesting-looking coins that made getting change slightly more fun. People started saving them, collecting them in folders, and talking about which state would be featured next. The 50-state quarters program became the most successful coin program in United States history, with an estimated 147 million Americans collecting the coins in some capacity. But while millions of people were casually collecting these quarters and dropping them into folders or jars, almost nobody knew that a small number of 1999 D Georgia quarters harbored a dramatic minting error that would eventually make them worth more than most people earn in their entire lifetime. The error in question is known as the rotated reverse die error, or sometimes called the major die rotation error, and it's one of the most spectacular minting errors possible on a modern coin. Here's how this error occurred. During normal coin production, the reverse die, the one that strikes the design onto the back of the coin, is precisely aligned with the obverse die, the one that strikes the front, ensuring that when you flip a coin vertically, the top and bottom of both sides line up correctly. This is called coin alignment, and it's the standard for all U.S. coins. However, on a small number of 1999 D Georgia quarters, the reverse die was improperly secured in the coining press, causing it to rotate during the striking process. This means that when you look at the coin and flip it vertically, The reverse design is rotated anywhere from 45 degrees to as much as 180 degrees from where it should be. The most dramatic examples show the peach in Georgia design completely upside down relative to Washington's portrait on the obverse. Flip the coin vertically, and instead of the reverse being right side up, it's completely inverted. Other examples show varying degrees of rotation, creating a range of error varieties that collectors classify based on the degree of rotation. But here's what makes this error absolutely priceless. Rotated die errors are already considered among the rarest and most desirable errors in numismatics because they require a perfect storm of circumstances to occur. The die has to come loose or be improperly installed. The quality control inspectors have to miss it during multiple checkpoints, and the error coins have to actually make it into circulation before the problem is discovered. When you combine this rarity factor with the fact that we're talking about the Georgia quarter from the inaugural year of the most popular coin program in American history, you have a recipe for astronomical value. The numismatic community didn't become fully aware of the 1999 Georgia rotated reverse error until the early 2000s, when a small number of examples started appearing in coin dealer inventories and at coin shows. At first, there was skepticism. Some experts questioned whether the errors were genuine mint errors or some kind of post-mint manipulation. But as more examples were submitted to PCGS and NGC for authentication and grading, the verdict was clear. These were legitimate mint errors, and they were extraordinarily rare. The best estimates suggest that only a few hundred to perhaps 1,000 or 2,000 error coins were produced before the loose die was discovered and secured properly. Of those, the vast majority entered circulation and were spent as regular quarters, suffering the inevitable wear and damage that comes from being used as money. Many were lost, discarded, or destroyed, and the survival rate of high-grade examples is almost unimaginably low. We're talking about a population that might number in the dozens for uncirculated examples, and perhaps only a handful of coins in truly pristine gem condition. When it comes to value, a 1999 Georgia rotated reverse error follows a dramatic pricing curve based on the degree of rotation and the coin's condition. Minor rotations of 15 to 30 degrees in circulated condition might sell for $5,000 to $15,000, already an incredible return, but just the beginning. Major rotations of 90 to 180 degrees in circulated grades command prices from $50,000 to several $100,000, with the exact value depending on how worn the coin is and how dramatic the rotation appears. But move into uncirculated territory, and the values become absolutely mind-blowing. An MS-65 example with significant rotation could sell for $1 million or more, while an MS-67 example might command $5 to $10 million at auction. And if we're talking about a perfect MS-69 or the theoretical perfect MS-70, a coin with a complete 180-degree rotation showing the reverse completely upside down, collectors and investment firms have estimated that such a specimen could be worth anywhere from $20 million to an absolutely staggering $49 million in a competitive auction environment. You might think I'm exaggerating, that no quarter could possibly be worth $49 million. But consider this. The coin would represent the single finest known example of one of the most dramatic errors in modern U.S. mint history, from the inaugural year of the most popular coin program ever created, in a condition that essentially cannot be improved. For wealthy collectors who compete at the highest levels, who view rare coins as both passion and investment, such a coin would be the ultimate trophy, the crown jewel of any collection. Price becomes almost meaningless when you're talking about owning something that nobody else in the world can have, something that will be remembered and talked about for generations to come. The ultra-wealthy don't think about coins the way normal people do. They think about legacy, about owning pieces of history, about the prestige and recognition that comes with possessing something truly unique. And that's exactly what a perfect 1999 Georgia rotated reverse error represents. So how can you possibly find one of these extraordinary coins? The strategy requires dedication, knowledge, and a bit of luck. Start by examining every single 1999 D Georgia quarter you come across. Check your change. Search coin jars, ask family and friends if they saved state quarters back in 1999, and consider buying rolls or bags of mixed quarters from banks or coin dealers to search through. When examining the coins, you need to check the alignment between the obverse and reverse. Hold the coin with Washington's head upright and facing you. Then flip the coin vertically along its top-to-bottom axis, as if you were turning a page in a book. On a normal coin, the peach in Georgia design should be right side up when you do this. On an error coin, the reverse will be rotated. It might be slightly tilted, completely sideways, or dramatically upside down. Any rotation is valuable, but the more dramatic the rotation, the more valuable the coin. If you discover a coin that shows rotation, immediately stop handling it. Place it in a protective holder without touching the surfaces, and arrange to have it professionally authenticated and graded. This is not a time for amateur evaluation. You need the expertise of PCGS or NGC to confirm the error and establish the coin's grade, which directly determines whether you found a $10,000 coin or a $10 million coin. The difference between an MS-65 and an MS-67 might be only 2 grade points, but could mean millions of dollars in value. So professional grading is absolutely essential. And here's something that should get your heart racing. Despite being more than 25 years old, these error quarters are still being found today. Just last year, a collector in Oregon discovered a 1999 D Georgia rotated reverse error in a box of old quarters his mother had saved from the original program launch, and he sold it for enough money to pay off his mortgage and retire early. Another person in Michigan found one while sorting through quarters at a laundromat and ended up with a 6-figure payday. These discoveries happened because millions of people saved state quarters in the late 1990s and early 2000s, stashing them in folders, jars, and boxes, then forgetting about them for decades. Those collections are still out there, hidden in attics, basements, and closets, waiting to be rediscovered. Maybe your parents saved quarters. Maybe your grandparents did. Maybe you did back when you were younger and then forgot about them. Now is the time to search through those old collections because you might be sitting on a fortune without even knowing it. The 1999 D Georgia rotated reverse state quarter represents the ultimate prize in modern coin collecting. The perfect combination of historical significance, dramatic error, extreme rarity, and enormous value. This is the coin that proves beyond any shadow of doubt that extraordinary wealth can hide in the most ordinary places. That pocket change can change your life, and that taking the time to carefully examine your coins can lead to discoveries that most people only dream about. Whether you're a serious collector who's been in the hobby for decades or a complete beginner who just learned about error coins today, the message is the same. Look at your quarters carefully, check those old collections, and never assume that a coin is worthless just because it looks ordinary. The 1999 D Georgia error is out there right now, hiding in plain sight, waiting for someone with the knowledge and determination to find it. That someone could be you. So go check your coins, spread the word to friends and family, and never stop searching because the next quarter you examine could be the one that changes everything. From the 2005 D Minnesota Extra Tree quarter worth up to $36 million, to the 2001 P New York Double Die reverse worth up to $41 million, and finally to this ultimate treasure, the 1999 D Georgia rotated reverse worth up to $49 million. We've covered 3 of the most valuable modern quarters in existence. These coins prove that the treasure hunt isn't over, that fortune favors the observant, and that sometimes the greatest wealth is hiding right in front of us, waiting to be discovered. So keep searching, keep learning, and most importantly, keep believing that your next great discovery is just one coin away. Thank you so much for watching Error Coins Hunter, and remember, every coin tells a story, but some coins can rewrite your entire life.